YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with an interesting video for you guys today. We're talking about the Atlanta Falcons and my opinion on the direction they should be heading. I feel very strongly about these opinions, so we're going to break it down. Then we got the trade deadline coming up, so we're going to talk about a bunch of different trade scenarios that could happen with the Falcons and some other teams. So this video isn't just talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Some of your favorite teams may show up in this video in some of these trade scenarios. And then at the end of the video, after going through a bunch of these trades I think could or should happen, we'll talk about maybe the Falcons' draft plan for this upcoming draft and some big-time players that can fit for them and guys they could be targeting. So a lot to go over here. But before we get started, we have extra content available outside of the YouTube channel. We got on our Patreon score predictions, playoff predictions, NFL mock drafts, and plenty more. All of that updated every single week on the Patreon, patreon.com/thegoathouse. So check it out. Link in the description for more info. And then we're trying to get to that 40K subscriber goal. We're getting close, so please help us out by subscribing. Full NFL content, videos like these. We got recaps, power rankings, predictions every week as well, and full NFL draft coverage in the offseason. Click that like button. Check us out on Twitter at GoatHouseNFL. All that would be much appreciated. But let's take a look at some, very realistic trades that could happen here at the deadline or before here. We're getting real close for the Atlanta Falcons. And we'll start with Vic Beasley here. And this is a guy, I made a trade scenarios video a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything about him being traded, but it's a guy I put up there. And then all of a sudden we hear that he could be traded. It makes a lot of sense to me. So there's some teams that really fit. The Ravens make the most sense, but other teams to watch out for, the Bills, Jets, and Titans. I originally thought maybe they can get a fourth rounder out of him if they give a late round pick back, but I'm kind of thinking fifth round, and I heard that the value for Vic Beasley right now is pretty low. Not a lot of production. He had one good year of production. His contract is coming to an end here, so fifth round at best is what it's sounding like right now. But again, the Ravens are my favorite I'm not saying favorite for landing him, but in terms of fit, they're my favorite. I think he should be a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think the Ravens definitely need somebody else in there. They're good at developing these types of players and getting them on the right track. Martindale's a hell of a defensive coordinator, so I would really like Vic Beasley to the Ravens. Looks like they're, looking at the last game against the Seattle Seahawks, their pass rush started to pick it up, but they could definitely use another guy outside. I take a look at the Bills. The Bills have a unique defense. Their base is more of a 4-3, but you see the way they use Lorenzo Alexander. He's traditionally a stand-up outside linebacker, but they'll put him as an edge rusher or blitz him a lot. And I think Vic Beasley can be that guy, but you trade a late pick for him and test it out and see if he can be that guy, because Lorenzo Alexander is not a guy that's going to be around forever. So I would like to fit with the Bills. And then two similar teams in terms of their defense with the Ravens is the Jets and the Titans, both running a 3-4. The Jets have the unique ability to be able to switch because Greg Williams is kind of used to running a 4-3. But the Jets, I like the Jets defense. But they're missing some important spots there. They're missing a corner and they're missing an edge rusher, so they can get him for a cheap cost, test him out, see if he can be part of the future. And I think he kind of can be, the role that Anthony Barr was going to be used in Greg Williams' defense, which everyone was excited about. They were supposed to get him. Is Vic Beasley anywhere near as good as Anthony Barr? No, but he can fill that role and definitely help the team. And I think he can play that role for them, kind of as an edge rusher / blitzer. And the Titans, I think, they could use some more edge rush, pass rush to be specific, because they get some good pressure at times, but it mainly comes from the inside, meaning, blitzes from the linebackers. They got real good middle linebackers. And we've seen them. They're always trying to trade. Last year, before the season started, they traded for Correa, and he hasn't worked out. And they traded for Reggie Gilbert, kind of a sleeper guy, but it's not a guy you want playing a lot of snaps. So they're always looking for this type of guy. So that's another team that could be interested. And all these teams have, it doesn't take a lot of cap space, but all these teams have enough cap space to make this happen. So I'd watch out for those teams, among many others, but these are the main teams I wanted to look at. Another trade the Falcons can make to help the kind of rebuild process. All these trades I think the Falcons should make. Will they make? That's another question. Austin Hooper is apparently teams are calling the Falcons about Austin Hooper, and I have two different slides here for Austin Hooper. So there's another one coming up, so don't worry if you're a certain fan base. But I've heard teams called about Austin Hooper. The Falcons are liking him. It looks like he's gotten a lot better this year. Never been a huge believer in him. Obviously, he can play the position, he can block, he can catch, but I've never been thrilled, excited about him, But this year he's looking really good. But he's the guy the Falcons will have to re-sign, and they would like to re-sign him. But to think if he walks, compensatory pick for 2021, possibly would be probably a 4th-round pick. So they'll need a 3rd-round pick from these teams, and all these teams actually have a 3rd-round pick to trade. You look at the Bills. I like me some Dawson Knox, but you can't be afraid to get better. They need another target, and Austin Hooper will help them get better. I know some Bills fans are like, hold on a sec, we got Dawson Knox. It's true. The more tight ends, the better. You see all these teams using multiple tight ends with success, and you definitely get better with Hooper. I can see them doing it. The Packers, another interesting one, because they have Jimmy Graham. I'm disappointed with Jimmy Graham's play in terms of his blocking, and we've seen him with some crucial drops this year. I'd say the Packers are probably the least likely to do this out of any of these teams, just because they have tight ends. They drafted Sternberger too, totally different type of tight end, but it's just having, because Hooper and Graham are similar tight ends. Just Hooper's just a lot better right now. So if the Packers are serious about taking that next step, kind of solidifying that top spot in the NFC with maybe the Saints, or trying to solidify that NFC North Championship title, then they go out and get something that helps them, and I think Hooper definitely helps them, and they could be willing to give up a 3rd-round draft pick. The Patriots obviously need a tight end. They've been running with the tight end, the lowest amount of times in the history of, this Belichick era and Tom Brady era. So they would like to have a guy like Hooper. They made a deal already for Sanu, and they can make a deal for Hooper. I think it's very possible they'll test the market with other tight ends as well. The Cowboys, maybe one of the long shot ones for these teams, but I think they can use him. I know they have a few tight ends that can play on the team, but they don't have Austin Hooper. Not that he's like a leader or anything anywhere near that, but he definitely helps them get better. Just trading for Michael Bennett and taking on some cap there could lower the chances for this. And the Jags got Nick Foles coming back. Well, either way, if they keep Minshew in, they definitely need another tight end. I like their draft, but for right now, to helping them get in the playoffs, which I think is still realistic. It's looking at the Colts and the Texans, even the Titans are kind of tough. It looks like a tough division for them, but it's definitely realistic. And we saw a big part of Foles' game, if Foles comes back, was the tight end play. Looking at Zach Ertz was great with Nick Foles, vice versa. You get a guy like Hooper in there, that makes that offense that much better, So I would look out for those teams. But the main team, I think it has to be a team calling them, and has to be the most interested, but there is an obstacle in the way, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. The obstacle is they do not have a 3rd-round pick, but I think they can still make a deal. 4th and a 5th-round pick. The Seahawks get Austin Hooper in the 7th because they gave up 2 picks. Not as valuable as a 3rd, but some teams, may rather have the 2 picks, even though they're worse than a 3rd-round pick, a 4th and a 5th. So that's interesting. The Seahawks don't have a 3rd-round pick. They have to be the one of the teams calling. They traded Nick Van Ness, and unfortunately, right after Will Dissly gets hurt, and Hooper can be a big part of their offense. I think from what I've heard, teams called the Falcons about Austin Hooper, and the Falcons actually made a counteroffer saying they want him back, but for us to trade him, we would need this. And I love that from the Falcons, if that's true, that they're open. That's kind of the point of this video. They need to be open to moving pretty much anything. And when I say anything, I mean pretty much anything, minus 1, 2, maybe 3 players, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about my strong feelings about where the Falcons should be heading after these trade scenarios. But Austin Hooper could go to the Seahawks. I think it's very possible. If the obstacle is no 3rd-round pick, I could see the Falcons saying, hey, we need a 2nd-round pick here, and we'll give you back another mid to late round pick. I can see that being kind of the counteroffer. Not saying a team's going to do it, but I can see that because he is getting better. He's still somewhat young, and they could want to re-sign him. So the Falcons really could need more than this to actually pull the trigger on this one. So we'll see. But the Seahawks are definitely in the tight end market, obviously. Next trade, Devonta Freeman. I haven't heard anything about him being traded, but kind of going back to my opinion, the Falcons just need to clean house pretty much. Julio Jones, the guy you keep because, that's a once-in-a-lifetime type of receiver. And then I like Grady Jarrett, I like Deion Jones. Guys like that and then this past rookie class, all those guys are, you can't trade for them. And they're not on the block whatsoever, in my opinion. But guys like Freeman, I would try to trade him. And as you can see, I may surprise people with the trade value. It's not very high, but I would still do it from the Falcons. You clear the space, and you just kind of move on, in the right direction. They haven't been able to run the ball as much as they want to, but it really hasn't been working out. So I'd take the 2 picks in a 5th and a 6th round. Now, not too valuable, but Freeman has a slight injury concern. I know he's been healthy this year. His contract, isn't pretty, I guess. You're going to have to pay him some money, over the next few years, but he's under contract. That's the good thing. And the Falcons head in the new direction. They load up on picks, and that's kind of another thing I think they should do. They should definitely load on picks so they're able to move around if they have to. But at the same time, they need a lot of players. They need a lot of talent, and just hold on to these draft picks and get a bunch of players. The Lions could be interested because Kerryon Johnson on the IR, 2nd year in a row, he's hurt. They need another back badly. We see how important it is. Teams having success right now. We see how crucial it is to have a legit duo. And the top teams in the NFL will show you that. You look at the Patriots, they got a long list of guys. You look at the Packers, they got a duo. The Vikings and the Saints, I'd say, have the best duos in football. And you see the success those types of teams are having. And you look at the Ravens, the Seahawks, it's important. And the Lions, not only do they not have a duo, they may not have a number one because Kerryon Johnson's always hurt. So they can definitely use Freeman alongside Kerryon Johnson for the future until Freeman's contract's up, and this Freeman deal could help them win this year because it's a tough division, but the Lions are a good football team. This can help them get back in it, and I can see the fit there in Detroit. So the Lions are really there's other teams I wouldn't rule out to making this deal, but because his name hasn't really come up in the the trade rumors, I picked one team that made the most sense to me. It's the Lions. Something to watch out for. Haven't heard anything on that though. But the point of the video is the direction the Falcons should is key word, be heading. I think they're kind of going to half-ass it, to be honest, the rebuild. We'll go into more thoughts on that just a bit. Another one I've heard on the trading block is Devonta Campbell, linebacker, young linebacker. Rookie year looked actually really good. He looked really good his rookie year and hasn't really played to that level since. He's hasn't played bad. He's had his bad moments, honestly, in the run game, but he's still a solid linebacker. The Raiders, I think, are pretty desperate for a linebacker now and for the future, and I think they could be able to work out a deal here. The lack of picks for these teams in certain spots made this, it was kind of an obstacle to get around here with the draft picks they actually have. If you go and look at what these teams have, so basically a 4th and a 5th swap is the way you think about it. So the Falcons move up from the 5th round to the 4th round, but the Raiders don't lose, that pick. They just move back a little bit, and the Falcons gain a 7th round pick. So he doesn't have a ton of value. Just a swap of picks in one mid-round, and you're gaining a 7th round pick. So not a whole bunch of value, but you still, gain a pick, and you get bumped up to help the rebuild. And the Raiders get their linebacker. They still, nothing's proven. They still have to test things out there, see if he can work. But I think they can sign him long term to a cheap contract, and they need linebackers pretty badly at the same time as needing to draft maybe a receiver, maybe a corner, another pass rusher. So this would help them in their draft, even though they're kind of moving around a little bit. It helps them and makes them more comfortable with their earlier picks. So that's one to look out for. The Raiders would be the top need for a linebacker like that fits. And then another trade that could happen at the deadline, look at Desmond Trufant. Apparently he could be on the trading block, and I sent him to the Eagles. 4th round pick in return. The Eagles also get a 7th through that in there. Not much there, but interesting one because I'm looking at which teams could use Desmond Trufant, and the only one that I felt good about is the Eagles. Other teams need corners too, but you have to take into account that he has a pretty hefty contract. I know the contracts for CBs will keep going up, but on top of the Eagles needing one pretty bad, they have the cap space. They have Carson Wentz locked up. Look at who's the other team that everyone's talking about getting a corner? It's the Chiefs, but they have cap space, not as much as the Eagles. At the same time, they also have a lot more needs than the Eagles, in my opinion. They need corners, like we talked about. They probably need another safety. They need linebackers. They need a defensive line. They need offensive line, and they have Mahomes to re-sign. So the cap space, they kind of want to keep it on the the safe side, be comfortable with it. So the Eagles are the only ones that made sense. They could afford his contract. I mean, even though he struggled at times this year, he's kind of in a bad situation, and the Eagles. He's an upgrade for the Eagles, that's for sure. And he won't cost that much. Fourth-round pick for a corner that's been solid for most of his career. Even though he's disappointing right now, he's earned his contract still. That's not that much, but the reason it's not that much is because, I guess he does have that hefty contract that they still have to pay. But I think the Eagles are the only team that would think about this or should think about this. So that's an interesting trade. The Falcons cut the cap, and they gained that fourth-round pick. I think it is possible that these trades, and I'm not done showing trade scenarios, but these are the main ones to focus on for this trade deadline. All right, and I think it's possible that, I don't think it's possible that all these happen, but I think it should be possible. The Falcons should be shopping these guys, and just imagine, if you're a Falcons fan, just imagine, or you don't even have to be a Falcons fan, loading up on all those picks I just showed. There was nothing super high about those picks. You get a fourth round here, you get a third round for Hooper possibly. Loading up on all those picks, that is ammo. I mean, you can sit still and still get some steals. I love sitting still in the draft, letting things fall to you, because guys always fall. We even see undrafted guys. How are they undrafted? Let the thing fall to you. You can build up your team quickly with these amount of picks, and I think they should do that. I really, really do. And we're going to talk about Matt Ryan now. You may have saw it in the thumbnail. Matt Ryan was featured on that. In my opinion, they should trade Matt Ryan. And I know some Falcons fans may be disappointed to hear that, mad at me. I think they should trade it because it's going to – I know I said if you gain a bunch of these picks, you can turn around the defense, you can turn around the team like that. But I think by the time those guys are developed and it's turned around realistically, Matt Ryan is probably going to be washed up. I mean, he's been solid this year, but I can still see a kind of a slight step down from where he was this year. And when they finally turn this thing around, talking about the offensive line and the defense, I don't think he'll be playing at a high level anymore. So you need to trade him. I feel very strongly about that. So we're going to talk about a Matt Ryan trades, a couple of Matt Ryan trades. And to be clear, I am not predicting this to actually happen. I'm 100% not predicting it's going to happen at the trade deadline. This is kind of off-season moves, and it's actually things I can see in the off-season, but still slight because it is Matt Ryan. He is their franchise quarterback. But let's throw up some teams I think can to trade for Matt Ryan. And we got to throw up the Patriots right away. Have to throw up the Patriots. There's been rumors that Brady could be leaving to a different team. I'm not really buying that. What I am buying is this could be his last year. I think he could be retiring. And who hates losing more than anybody? It's the Patriots, because they always make trades. They always put themselves in the situation to be winning. They cannot accept. They cannot take losing. They're going to do whatever it takes to keep winning. I like Jarrett Stidham, but they're not going to be that pretty next year or the next couple years with Stidham or any of those free agent quarterbacks. I don't think they'll be happy with some of those quarterbacks in free agency with their turnover ratio, I should say. Best way to put it. So they could go out and trade for Matt Ryan. I think the value for Matt Ryan goes up when it's the Patriots. We look at 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick next year. So 1 first-round pick this year, 1 next year, a second next year. The value, I don't have his value at this, but when it's the Patriots, I do, because the Falcons have an edge. They have the leverage, I should say, because the Patriots know they need him to keep winning, and that's what they want to do. They will not accept losing, and that's why I respect the hell out of them, honestly. They're always making deals. And we saw what Mohamed Sanu went for to the Patriots. Went for a second-rounder. That was a little rich, but the Patriots do what the Patriots do, and you can't really doubt them. So it will be very rich for a guy like Matt Ryan. Even it's so hard to come across quarterbacks like this. I know he's getting up there in age, but even a quarterback at the average category may be worth the first-round pick to the Patriots because they may need him. So the Falcons will just think about that. I know, and on top of all that, they're probably the last pick in the first round or close. So you have to think about that too. But the Falcons load up on picks here, and they have the freedom, again, to draft. This year, do they want to draft 2 first-rounders to help their team because they need multiple positions to fill, where they need to fill need? Or do they take those picks, trade up, and get their quarterback of the future because it is a rebuild process? Or, or do they grab that offensive piece, defensive piece that is the franchise guy for the future? I think this is something along the lines they should do. We're going to take a look at some other teams that I think could trade for him, but it would make so much sense. I would not be surprised if the Patriots, I'm not saying it would happen, but the Patriots in the offseason would call the Falcons about this, because it's just the Patriots. If Brady retires. If Brady retires or he's gone, they're going to need somebody like this, and they want somebody polished where they can just keep winning the Super Bowl, The Patriots always feel like they have to prove something, and this is something that they would do for sure. They would definitely make the call to see if this is possible. I know that for a fact. Another team, the Titans. The Titans have Mariota and Tannehill going to be a free agent. I think it's a long shot they would put Matt Ryan at their quarterback. I think they would, rather get a young quarterback. But why the Titans? Not only because they need a quarterback or going to need a quarterback. I know they can re-sign one of their quarterbacks, but the other reason would be Titans defense is real good right now, and they don't want to spend the time to rebuild the offense, get a new quarterback, new coordinator, new offensive line, or a whole new offensive line almost, besides a couple guys. And then Derrick Henry's a free agent too. They don't want to rebuild the offense while the defense is in its prime. They want to go make the offense a quick turnaround. And to do that, you trade for Matt Ryan. But you see one first-round pick, because the Titans, we don't really know yet. This could be more accurate if we do this in the offseason when it could become true. But the Titans could have an early to mid-first-round pick. So that's why it's just a first-round pick. And then they have 2 seconds, a second from this year, a second from next year for Matt Ryan. And maybe some Falcons fans say they wouldn't do this. They would need more. But again, you have to think about when you actually turn around the rest of the team, where will Matt Ryan be at? You have to be realistic about it. I really think you have to trade him, even if it's for something like this. You can get your quarterback, or you can build the team around your future quarterback. Wait till next year. Anything can happen there. But again, I can't stress this enough. I don't think they actually trade Matt Ryan. It's just something I feel strongly about. But let's take a look at another team, and we see that the value starts going down a little bit. I think the Chargers could be a possibility. Phillip Rivers' contract is up. I don't think Phillip Rivers plays anywhere else. I think they either re-sign him or he retires. I think there's a possibility. And why the value is less is because I think they may rather re-sign Phillip Rivers. If he retires, they may rather stick with Tyrod Taylor, actually, than trade picks, because they do need some other things. But the Chargers are definitely a team that if Phillip Rivers retires and they want to keep rolling, that they can go for a guy like Matt Ryan. But they do need offensive line and maybe some help here and there on defense. But other than that, it's a pretty good roster if it's healthy, and they have a quarterback. So this is kind of depending on the Rivers situation, but it's something that, popped in my head that was somewhat realistic, at least somewhat. But a first round and a second round, I don't think the Chargers would be, they would make an offer if they needed to, but they're not a team that would offer a whole bunch. Another team would be the Broncos. I think the Broncos wouldn't offer that much at all either, because the first round pick could be very early, so that increases the value. And we still don't know about Drew Lock. I don't think they think Drew Lock is the long-term answer, because they had the chance to draft him early. They kind of waited a little bit. They did get their hands on him, but they know they can get better at quarterback for the future. They also just traded for Joe Flacco. Before this year, so I guess maybe a little more unlikely to make this trade, but you never know at Elway. They would be willing to offer something like this, in my opinion, because the Broncos have talent on the defense. They have weapons on offense, but they just traded Emmanuel Sanders, so they may just be for the rebuild. But I can't really tell with the Broncos. They're kind of like half in that. They got their foot, just dipped in a little bit, but I think they would be interested, but not as much as the other teams. It's a team that wouldn't offer as much, is my point. And now this would be a blockbuster, huge trade, this next one. I'm not predicting to happen, of course, but it makes a lot of sense, to be honest, and it's interesting to think about, and it's including Derek Carr from the Raiders. Why? I think Matt Ryan could fit Gruden's offense. I think that can make that team possibly a contender next year right off the bat. Derek Carr, Derek Carr can play. He definitely can play, but I still don't know if he's 100% proven, I guess, after the injury. And I just have this feeling that the Raiders are going to draft a future quarterback anyways, unless they make a deal. No, they still would with a deal like this too, but not this year's draft. I think they would do it in the future. People had that feeling kind of last draft, but Gruden wanted to give Carr a chance. Obviously, he wanted to give this offense a chance. Offense looks good. Carr needs to take care of the ball a little bit. I think they're going to keep Carr, but I still think they will draft a quarterback high in the next couple of years. So I had to swap here, and why? Because, like I said, I think they both fit. I think Matt Ryan really fits with Gruden's offense, the Raiders' offense that can help them win now. I don't know if they really believe in Derek Carr to help them win now. And then why Derek Carr to the Falcons? Well, the Falcons, like I said, they need to rebuild it. They need to turn it around. By the time they turn it around, I think Matt Ryan will be washed up. I think Derek Carr can be part of that process there. And they have somewhat similar contracts, keep in mind, too. And then they swap picks. The Falcons get the Raiders' later first-round pick, whether it's the Chicago Bears or the actual Raiders pick at the first round. The Falcons get the later first-round pick, and the Raiders get the later second-round pick, so that'll be from New England. So they swapped those picks. So obviously valuing Matt Ryan more than Derek Carr. Why? Because I'm not 100% sold on Derek Carr. Yeah, it's good for the Falcons because he can help them, and he can be part of the rebuild too, the quick rebuild they want it to be. Whether Matt Ryan, I don't think can. I think they think he can be, but I don't think so. So this trade, I know people will disagree strongly, but to me, this trade makes a whole bunch of sense to me. And the main reason being, I think Gruden will really like it, but I really think, and I think people are on the same page with me, that the Raiders will be drafting, I don't think this year, I think maybe next year, will be drafting a quarterback, not to instantly take over for Derek Carr, but to be the quarterback of the future. I don't know if Gruden has his quarterback right now. And they can still do the same thing when trading for Matt Ryan. In 2021, they can still draft the quarterback of the future. So they're on the same page as being more of a contender, next year, right away. And the Falcons, I kind of explain why I think they should do this, even though Falcons fans may disagree. But you get a first-round pick and you still have a quarterback. I would do this. If I'm both teams, either team, I'm doing this in a second. And I love the fits. So that's why I thought of this. And, trying to consider teams that Matt Ryan would fit with and teams that would want Matt Ryan. These are the teams I came up with. Raiders were a big fit, even though they have a quarterback. It's just, is he the quarterback of the future? A couple other teams like the Buccaneers and the Saints even, but division rival. They will not trade a division rival. The Buccaneers made a lot of sense. If the Saints go with Teddy Bridgewater for the future, then that kind of scratches them off the board. But again, he would have to be traded. They will not trade the division rival. So I thought, though, even the Panthers, maybe. So it's weird in division teams that kind of could use a quarterback. That's kind of for the future. That's kind of interesting. But and then kind of looking at like what they could do if they made trades like these. Who are the top picks? The draft fits that they could pick early. They could package picks that they gain to move up for, or even if they sit put, like guys they could be targeting to make their team better right now, top picks. I mean, if they do trade Matt Ryan, or if they don't, it's a team to watch out for a quarterback, even if they don't. As we sit, I think Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert fit more, even Jacob Eason, but he's not on the tier these guys are in. I think Jacob Eason will, when it's all said and done, will be a first-round quarterback. I just don't know if he's on the tier of these guys. Right now I think Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert fit. If they keep Matt Ryan, then these definitely are the fit. If they move on from Matt Ryan, or we don't know who their coach is going to be. We don't know what their system's going to be. So we don't really know what the exact fit will be. But Tua, if they're able to get him, maybe they have an earlier pick than expected. They want to kind of switch the system a little bit. I think it could work out, especially with the former Alabama receivers. That's pretty interesting. But right now, as we sit, especially with Matt Ryan in the system, Burrow and Justin Herbert are more of fits. DeAndre Swift won't be a super early pick because he's a running back, but it's a running back that'll change the game. I think sometimes it's a little tough for Matt Ryan. Sometimes he's getting pressured a lot, and sometimes he's throwing interceptions because the offense becomes predictable. They have no run game. Teams know they're throwing. It's very hard to play well when the defense knows what you're doing. So you gain a run game here in DeAndre Swift, a guy that can run the ball very well and catch the ball out of the backfield. It won't be the early pick. It'll be, if they get their hands on 2 first-round picks, they can grab him with the second one. They could trade back. If they have one, they can trade back and gain DeAndre Swift and gain more draft picks. They can, if they have an early first-round pick, they can take one of the top-tier guys, and they can move up from the second round, kind of like they did last year, and get a guy like DeAndre Swift. Maybe it's Travis Etienne or Jonathan Taylor, but DeAndre Swift made the most sense to me. And then 3 more picks that would be, within the top 10. Chase Young, which I think, most people say he's the best player in the draft, which I agree with as of right now. There's some other guys battling the spot, but I think he'll drop a little bit just because the need at quarterback and just because the draft class at quarterback. So he can drop, and if the Falcons are picking where they're picking right now, in that top 8 range, we'll say. 4 through 8 is what they're projected right now. They can actually grab Chase Young, and the pass rush has been ugly. Chase Young upgrades it instantly. Isaiah Simmons makes a lot of sense. Maybe more towards that 8 through 15 range. I love Isaiah Simmons, freakish dude. And it's tough to say they need a linebacker, that early. Why take a linebacker that early when you have other big needs? Well, like I said, they're struggling with the outside pressure. Isaiah Simmons brings that interior pressure. He has a different type of pressure, blitzing and covering downfield, athletic freak, bright future. It can make the defense unique. So it's a guy. And then Jeff Okudah should be the best cornerback in the draft. He's today's NFL's corners. We see the more physical guys, the guys with not a lot of playmaking ability or athleticism. They used to be the best corners in the NFL. Not so much anymore. It's more of the quick offenses. So the quicker corners, the playmaking corners are better. Jeff Okudah is all of that. So he should be a top 10 pick, and the Falcons could get him as their number one corner, whether they have the Desmond Trufant or not, whether they trade him or not. So these are guys I think they would target. It is tough to tell because we don't know their exact coaching staff, exact system, but these are the guys that they could be targeting right now when thinking about what their trade deadline situation is and going in the offseason to think about what to do at Matt Ryan. I believe deep down they made up their decision on that. Again, I think they should trade him. I really do. It may sound bizarre to some Falcons fans, but I don't really have to think much about it. If I'm in that front office, you don't trade him for nothing, but you test it, you see what the value is. But I'm trading him if it's for what the value should be, in my opinion, and we kind of saw what I thought. So that's going to wrap up this one. Pretty interesting video. So let me know your guys' thoughts. If you're a Falcons fan, let me know the thoughts, like where you want to be heading. What are your thoughts on trading Matt Ryan? I'd say, Julio Jones, Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, guys like that in this past draft class, they can't be traded for. They can't be got. So other than that, I'm looking for some sort of rebuild there. Let me know your guys' thoughts. We'll have more trade deadline videos. Any trades go down, we're going to grade them. We also have plenty more NFL content all year long. So please subscribe. Hopefully you can join us next time. That's going to do it for this one. Goodbye.